Alrighty, so Green Knight, current Quasar commander, has sent two different things. No, actually, these are all for World Legacy archetype stuff. Just different archetypes in the World Legacy. They said that it was 4 new Legacy support cards for the pre-time skip World Legacy archetypes. So these are for the before times, so that's pretty cool. Oh, pre-time skip. So not in the before times when the mekk-knights were first made and the world was ruined. This is before it goes from just after Nightmares to just before Crusadia. So that's where we're at right now. Okay. World Legacy Memoriam. If you control no other monsters, you can special summon a mekk-knight token, which is a level 1 light psychic monster with 0 attack and defense, to both players' fields in defense position, and when a card effect is activated when your opponent in your opponent's hand or graveyard while you control a non-token mekk-knight monster, negate the activation. Holy cow. Okay, now that's a once per turn. It's not a continuous effect like the other mekk-knight or the other World Legacy mekk-knight column negators, so that's a bit more balanced, I think. I think that's pretty cool. So, minor issue here, as a continuous spell card, it shouldn't say if you control no other monsters, because it itself is not a monster. So, you would say something like if you control no other cards, or if you control no monsters. It had to be one of those two. Other than that, yeah, no, it sets up columns. You can put this in an EMZ, or below an EMZ, make the token, and then link it into like a Linkaribo or something, and then you have a mekk-knight column. World Legacy Swarm is a continuous trap card. If a face-up insect-type monster is targeted by a card effect, the activated effect becomes change the targeted monster to face-down defense position, and then destroy. Oh! Wow! If a crawler monster you control is destroyed by battle, special summon a differently named crawler monster from your grave. I know that crawlers gain their floating effect when destroyed in a particular way. I thought they had to be face up for that. Am I getting it? Crawler. If this face up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of it. If a face up insect monster is targeted for a card effect, the activated effect becomes change the targeted monster to face down defense position, then destroy it. Okay, so it's not going to trigger their floating effect specifically. Huh. Next up is Inheritors of the World Chalice. A Link 3 light warrior monster with 3,000 attack, requiring 2+ World Chalice monsters. If you have at least 4 World Chalice monsters in your grave, you can add a World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. I like that. It incentivizes you to play... It's World Chalice monsters, so technically there's like 8 of those, 1 each for all of the characters and their upgraded Link forms, so you don't have to technically get all 4 of them into rotation. Oh, Link 4. How did I miss that other arrow? Anyway, Link 4, which also keeps in mind the party there. There's also like the Chalice and the and Lee, but the idea of like the 4-person party is being held intact there, and I think that's what's most important, so that makes sense. But you can shuffle a World Chalice monster from your grave into the deck, then target one other effect monster on the field, negate its effects until the end of its turn. If this Link summoned card is sent from the field to the grave, you can special summon 2 World Chalice monsters from your deck or grave, except a copy of this card. Hey, that's a pretty nifty piece of tech there. Gives you something to go into after Ningirsu, after you use its removal effect, and potentially draw you a few cards. It searches you a card every turn as long as you meet the requirements. It has effect negation, and then it floats into 2 World Chalices. So that's pretty nifty. And then last we have Nightmare Chimera, which is a Link 5 monster. Fiend, 3,000 attack, requiring 3 or more monsters with different materials. If this card is Link summoned, you can discard a card to banish cards your opponent controls for each differently named co-linked Nightmare monsters you control. Then, if this card was co-linked when this effect was activated, draw a card. Co-linked Nightmare monsters you control gain attack equal to their own Link rating times 200. That means that a co-linked Chimera can be 4,000. So we had to get a diagonal, of course, because once we've done the Link 4s, all the cardinal directions are taken care of. The top left is probably a reference to one of the Orcus Link monsters, and it allows you to co-link with things that are not Nightmare monsters that have diagonal arrows. It goes partway towards creating the vaunted semi-U-link, as it were, because you can top left to bottom right, and then move right, and then move up. Now, unlike the other Nightmare monsters, this effect, the first activated effect, does require you to have co-linked Nightmare monsters to resolve the effect. Normally, it's just discard and get an effect, no strings attached, which is why they're so good. But if you can pull this off, you are banishing a wild amount of cards, like the U-Link lock, but it's V-shaped. We're that close to the V-Link. So all of these are World Legacy cards, but they're all different archetypes, which means we need to really quickly go through a few Nova scales in quick succession. Perhaps even a World Legacy succession. Jokes? Okay, so let's start with World Legacy Memoriam. Actually, real quick, for Novelty, I think for all of these, we can give them a 1. If only for the fact that we have seen these archetypes before, and it's just Legacy support for them. So, Objectivity. Is Memoriam balanced? If we had Green Knight here, we could figure this out more. What they exactly meant with the first line on Memoriam, but I have to knock it for the no other monsters because that would be pretty confusing. As a continuous spell card, it shouldn't have that. Power level wise, it's a 1-card enabler for a mekk-knight, but it doesn't give you the mekk-knight. So you still have to get it, and there's honestly other cards that are just like a little worse than this that give you 1-card columns to summon your monsters out with. So I'm giving it a 4 on Objectivity. Pretty balanced, it's just a really good enabler. Versatility. Will this be seeing play in a lot of things? Well, it doesn't provide any drawbacks for using this effect. So by giving both players a token, not only are you shutting off things like Kashtira summons, you're also stopping things like Imperm and Evenly Matched, while giving yourself a material. So honestly, you could still see this card being played in archetypes that are not mekk-knights, especially because as a World Legacy card, you can search this with things that search World Legacy. So honestly, I'm giving it a 4 on Versatility. Awesomeness, it's pretty cool. I wouldn't say this card itself lights a fire under me, but it is pretty cool, so I'm okay with giving it a 3 in Awesomeness because it enables mekk-knights in a pretty cool way. That means that we are starting off Memoriam at a 12. Memoriam's got a 12. World Legacy Swarm. So, Green Knight, since you're here, could you help me understand something about this? Because I reread the crawlers, and it says that it changes the crawlers only get their floating effect when they're face up and removed from the field, but this one changes them face down, then destroys them. What was the reasoning behind that? What was the thought process behind that? They're the World Legacy I've played the least. I was definitely designed with the intention of triggering their floating effect. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind for its ability. Something to flip up the crawlers and blow them up would be cool. True, yeah. Like a better or a pawns, I think it is. So for Objectivity, knowing what we want it to do, I think we'll keep the Objectivity at 4 because the power level is good but not outstanding, but really, really good for crawlers. We just need to clean up the problem-solving card text on here to really show what it is this card is meant to do. So we're going to keep a 4 on this one. Versatility, I'm going to be a little less on the versatility here. Insect decks could potentially use this as a way to change effects from don't negate me, just blow me up before your interaction resolves. So I think that's pretty cool. But at that point, it's just kind of like locked into insect decks, crawlers being one of them. And then it also has the bonus ability of floating into other crawlers. So I think versatility is 3 on this one. Awesomeness. Now I'm going to give a 5 on awesomeness for this because while I'm not the biggest crawler fan, I can appreciate when an archetype that has been left by the wayside gets really good support. I'm sad to report that Crawler Soma did not revitalize the archetype in a way that mattered, which means we are still looking for good cards for this one. So we're going to give this a 5 on awesomeness. I like this. It's going to be a 13. All right. Next up, Inheritors of the World Chalice. So Novelty, once again, One, because it's part of World Chalice, which we've already seen, and it works on a similar axis. Objectivity. Okay, now this one, I think, does not have any issues with it. We have at least 4 World Chalice monsters in the... yeah. Well, I think 4 or more is the technical term for it, but potatoes on this one. You can add a World Legacy card. So I'm going to bump the Objectivity on this one to a 5, because it's still pretty balanced and good for the... Well, still being good for the archetype, without being ridiculously powerful. Versatility. This one is a lot more locked into World Chalice monsters, so you do have to use those. So I think I have to knock Versatility over to a 1, just because I don't see any other archetypes accessing this very easily or even using it. But I am going to keep the 5 awesomeness here, because World Chalice is such a cool archetype. I love it. It's so cool. So this is going to be a 12 on that one. And lastly, we have Nightmare Chimera. Let's see here. Nightmare Chimera. Objectivity. Yeah, this one was made as a replacement to our Loss of Juice this year, and thank goodness for it. Okay, Objectivity. This card is link summoned, so... Link summoned. This is another 5 for Objectivity. While the idea of being able to banish so many cards is ridiculous, I don't think this would be overpowered in the same way that Nightmare Unicorn isn't overpowered. Actually getting a whole bunch of co-linked Nightmare monsters is more difficult than some people might think, especially when there are usually better options for it. So I think that's fine there. Versatility 1. I gotta bump this up to a 5. You're gonna hear this in an eventual video that some of us know is coming soon, that Nightmares are profusely playable in anything, because they just require monsters with different names. As long as you can get one other Nightmare monster on board you can co-link with, you can banish 2 cards. I think that's pretty good. Without Goblin or Mermaid, you're gonna get like 2 banishes at most. I mean, that's still 2 banishes. And it doesn't target, which I like. So I'm pretty good with that. So that one makes Chimera, Nightmare Chimera, a 16. Easy 16 on this one. I like it.